Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my next chat. Now, where's my?
I have a long keyboard. What?
Yeah, just chatting.
Holy, you're playing.
All right. So here in Australia, we have dairy biased media, and basically, it we're all discussing this Albo, our prime minister, doing this interview and having a go at say some rude sexist comments about Kylie Minogue, and that just seems to be all the media is focusing on. Right? It's not talking about like the P, PRRT, which is basically taxing the resources rent tax, because there's like 1 year we gave 56% of our gas away for free, basically in Australia. 56%, and we're the second largest exporter of gas in the world. We gave 56% of that for free, which means that it wasn't taxed as well. So not only were we giving it away like for nothing, which yeah, free, but no tax on it at all. And that's why you got people in households in Japan and uh, Taiwan and South Korea, households and businesses, I should say, that spend pay less for Australian gas than Australians do. And I don't mean like small amounts either. I mean like we're like $36 per kilojoule, and they're like 8 or 10. So it's like a massive difference, and it's our gas. It's from our country, right? And yet we spend like 26, 20, 28, $26 more per kilojoule than they do. And it's like, why? And it's one of the reasons is Santos is Santos headquarters in Adelaide. I'm pretty sure it's a Japanese company, isn't it? Okay, so it is an Australian company. So which company was the one that? Oh, former Liberal leaders. So then, who's the biggest? Chevron. Alright, I'm very confused because my understanding of it was that 86% of Australia's mining operations are operated by foreign companies. We did the Google search last time, remember? And now it's like, hang on. Some of the companies I thought were foreign are Australian. I'm like, hang on. Then how is it that, like, if these companies are the biggest exporters of Australian gas, then they're the ones that are exporting it for free. If it's 56%, then surely that would be they would be part of that, right? Okay, okay. So we do have some foreign that's Australian apparently, and yeah. Oh, so we're third largest now. Qatar's now number two. So three of those countries, I don't know what it's like with China, but three of those countries, um, three of those countries pay less for Australian gas than Australians do. Economic value, $50 to $90 billion. But we barely get any tax revenue from that. Like, what would be a fair amount of tax revenue for that? Like, so if they're making 50 to, let's say they make $50 billion at the low end, would $15 billion be too much? Because if it's at 30% tax rate, yeah, so 10% would be five. So that would be, yeah, 15 billion. Or if it's 90 billion, that would be $27 billion. We're not getting anywhere near that. Surely. So that's only during peak years, not every single year. Over 10 years, that much. That's the entire mining sector, not just the gas industry. So if we were doing, like I said, 30% tax rate at 50 million billion, that would be $15 billion, which is the company tax rate or was the company tax rate. So they're not paying nearly enough because if we're going 10 years, so that's $39.46 billion in tax revenue for the entire mining industry per year. And we're getting 15, if we were doing it correctly at the company tax rate as it was, gas alone at its lowest point at 50 billion would give us 15 billion in tax just for the federal company tax. Royalties, that's different state to state, so that I don't know what that would be, but it's even less because that's total royalties in that. So if over 10 years, that's $22.75 billion a year for the entire mining industry. So that's disgusting. That they are getting away with a lot. Like, it is a massive industry, yeah, but damn. And this is all stemming from the fact that I noticed like these things, that topics that the media don't talk about, like the resource rent tax, right? The whole idea was to tax mining companies, right, for the resources that they export, and we mostly export our resources. It's shown with the gas, at least, right? Yeah, 90% of Australia's gas, 83% of all natural gas extracted in Australia is frozen shipped overseas. But we've got gas shortages sometimes in this country. So yeah, like we should be generating more in tax revenue. So if you're looking at this, 405 billion for financial year 2026, they're getting, they're not saying that each year, they're saying that over a number of years. So if you do it 10 years, like this one does, that's the tax revenue, right? For 10 years. That's 22.75 billion dollars per year. 405 billion dollars times by 0.3, which is 30%. You're looking at 121.5 billion. $121.5 billion in tax revenue if at 30%, right? So that's what we should be getting, but we're getting, that's over 10 years. So you divide that by 10, you're getting $22.75 billion per year. So we're missing out. We're missing out on $98.75 billion a year if we were doing it at 30%. That's how much Australia is missing in tax revenue, just from our mining industry this year. If we're getting on average 22.75 billion from the entire mining industry in tax revenue for the federal government, when if it's at 30% the tax rate, right, we should be getting a more. Not even gas is not even our biggest export. It's actually iron ore and then gold. What? They just didn't like that's 2/3 of all our merchandise exports, right? So it affects our dollar value massively. So firstly, we're not getting the tax revenue that we should be getting from the mining industry, and it's inflating our dollar. So our dollar is worth more than what it should be. Thus, we're not. Other industries are suffering from not being able to export because people want to export it cheaply, right? So it just makes it more difficult, and we're not getting out anything out of it. Like we're getting something out of it, but we're not getting what we should be getting out of it, and nobody is discussing this. Nobody, right? So that is frustrating because all the media cares about at the moment is he's having a go at Kylie Minogue or says sexist comments about Kylie Minogue. This is a guy who isn't is putting us into a $1 trillion plus debt, right? He's overlooking an NDIS scheme that's blowing out, and even the Treasury talked about a $54 billion budget black hole, and the Treasurer, Secretary of Treasury, the MP, the Minister in charge of the Treasury, said they'll take it on notice. That they don't care. $54 billion. Australia's. Oh my God! Even the Treasury. Okay, let's. Oh, that's a actual news article. I probably won't be able to share that, but Wow. And like the debt, the trillion plus debt is the federal government debt, but it doesn't even count for the state government's debt. And as you saw there, Victoria is the worst at $215 billion. So yeah, you put it on per person in the state, right? And that's per capita. But then you've also got to add in the fact that you've got federal debt as well. So you're adding on the federal debt. And if you look at councils, they're all in debt as well. So you're just adding on to the debt that every Australian eventually has to pay through their taxes, right? And a lot of the government revenue comes from individuals like us, the taxpayers, and not a lot of it comes from corporate. And it's like you've got this massive industry of mining, and it's like you're not taxing it. Why? Those resources aren't going to be there forever. We're not making use of them. We're exporting them, and it's mostly to the benefit of foreigners that people in other countries that it's not benefiting us, and nobody's asking these questions. Now, it's I find it very strange that they are this ask these questions, and maybe this is just me frustrated, doing this video. I'm trying to do 100 videos. Started doing it as video games, and then I started doing a couple of political chats because it does get frustrating. It's like I just did my taxes, and we're seeing more of the taxes going towards interest than to other services. And it's like I work hard, I do my 9 to 5 shift. It's hard to get ahead, right? And you got these politicians with their 6-figure salaries. Not only that, but 5-figure pay increases. Like I think he got like $60,000, the prime minister, as a pay increase. And it's like, hang on, that's almost a year's wage. Like, if you looked at it before, 52% of Australians, according to the ATO, earn $50,000 or less. So he's just as a pay increase, more than 52% of Australian taxpayers earn in a year. And they can earn money from their wages, they can earn money from interest, they can earn money from shares, but that's generally, you don't usually think of people earning $50,000 or less would be earning from that, right? So mostly they'd be part-time jobs or whatever, right? 52%, and he's earning a $60,000 pay increase to jump his salary up to like 600 something thousand, right? Let's see. 607,000. Damn. So even when he retires, Oh, he pays income tax. Interesting. Okay. So they do have benefits, but they don't get the retirement pension anymore, or at least not the same amount that they used to get. Interesting. But yeah, I just think it's a rort. It is a rort. But what can you do but vote for something different? And that's the reason why, for my first political video, why I joined the One Nation is like we have to make these people not feel safe in their job. Because in Australia we have compulsory voting. And not only that, but we have preferential voting. So our vote will always count to somebody getting a seat, right? We number the boxes 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, and our vote will always count to someone. Yeah. So our vote does matter more, and the only way we can change the system is to get these politicians afraid that they might lose their seats because they're not afraid. They're not as they don't feel as safe as say U.S. politicians who buy those shares and do those stock trades and now crypto. But they do shit like selling their houses before or their investment properties before they change legislation to make it no more profitable to have investment properties. So they do stuff like that, but they tend to not do it as much because otherwise they get voted out, right? Or if they're not in a safe seat, they'll get voted out. But that's the thing, we shouldn't have safe seats. So if you constantly vote one side or the other, just don't. You're creating for them a safety net, and that breeds corruption. And we're seeing it in our own system. You can't say the politicians, yeah, oh, the liberals are corrupt. No, they're all corrupt. So what you have to do is you have to keep them on their feet, keep them on their toes, keep them unsafe. And at the moment, they're okay with like every 6 or 7 years changing from liberal to Labour. Well, let's throw another wrench in that system. Let's throw in a third party. And that's why I'm going with One Nation this federal election, and why I joined One Nation because I put my money where my mouth is. You know, so all she needs to do is get elected once, and that will shake up the Labour Party. It will shake up the Liberal Party, and go like, oh no, no, got to do something, got to change something. So they will come up with better policies for Australians, and it's been seen in the past. You know, especially with when Malcolm Turnbull brought in those uh, foreign political donations, and you had the gun laws from John Howard, or the fact that they did a U-turn on the processing people, refugees in Australia after the Christmas Island disaster. So these politicians do change policies. They even do 180s if they feel the Australians will vote them out. But now all of a sudden, I think since Scott Morrison, they've stopped fearing the Australian public, the Australian vote, and it's like we have to shake up that system. And yeah, so that's why another reason why, and I'm hoping that. Do I think Pauline Hanson will tackle the mining companies now? But I think by voting her in, it will force political parties like the Labour Party to tackle them because the Labour Party was the initial one that brought in the PRRT tax system. They just did a terrible job of it because they wanted to rush it through and they didn't want to take on the mining companies or their lobbyists, right? Because the mining companies were literally buying shares within uh, TV stations so they can control what the news was saying, right? So like, oh crap, we can't take them on. We'll just rush it through, get the so they don't have to pay so much, and but they at least initially tried to take them on, is what I'm saying. But unless we shake up the system so it encourages them to take them on again, they're not going to take them on. So we have to force them to do that. That by throwing them a wrench, throwing in One Nation in there as not only a potential but actual taking over government, it'll waken up the major parties. It'll wake them up. And that's why one of the reasons why doing it. I'm also hoping that she actually brings in permanent changes. So, for example, not picking a random number of immigrants letting into the country, match it to housing. If Treasury says that mass immigration is a major cause of housing crisis in Australia, then you match immigration to housing. So, say you build 180,000 houses that year, okay. Now we're only going to let in, say, 90,000. So, for every two houses we build, we bring in an immigrant. That way, you have enough houses for them, and you have enough houses for those here born in this country, right? And because of the mass immigration, most of the children being born are from immigrant families. So it's first generation Australians, right? So giving them the better chance as well, to get into the market, to own their own piece of Australia that they call their home. It also brings in much more patriotism. Like if you have a piece of land that you own in this country, you care about this country a lot more than say if you were renting or living out on the street. So yeah, I think it'll be benefit to us all. But yeah, leave a comment in the comment section to tell me what you guys think. I know I've been all over the place, but yeah, still learning. But yeah, that's just one of the frustrations that I had recently, and you know, tell me what subjects are you frustrated at the moment? All right, peace.